Go.
Almost every time I drive somewhere, I have my GPS pulled up. I like to know where I currently am, where I'm going, and how long it's going to take me to get there. Even if I didn't have a GPS and I just had a map, I could still look at the landmarks around me and figure out where I am. But what on earth would I do if I was in the middle of the ocean, but nothing but water in every direction? Lost would be an understatement. This was a very common problem. This was a problem for sailors all over the world, and that sparked the quest for a sea clock. Now, as far as we can go back, man has used nature to keep track of time and location. It simply made sense to use the sun, moon, stars, and time because they were so visibly reoccurring and able to be tracked. It was something that they could depend on to occur day after day, year after year, and even their daily livelihoods began to reflect this cyclical pattern of nature. But then the clocks were invented, and man started to see his day in smaller and smaller increments. These weight-driven pendulum clocks were very helpful, but they weren't perfect. You see, even though they could keep track of time, they could sync up with time with clocks all over the world, they were not portable. They couldn't be used at sea because the rocking of the waves would send off the pendulum, and there would go any hope of accurate timekeeping. Now, it may seem as though timekeeping isn't necessary at sea because they're in the middle of the ocean, but it actually was crucial for sailors to know where on Earth they were. You see, the latitude was pretty easy to figure out. They could just look at the position of the stars and figure out how far north or south they were. The longitude was the problem. You see, there were methods to determining longitude, but they were extremely difficult and extremely time-consuming. So the king of both Spain and France decided to put out a prize for whoever could come up with a better solution. And that was in 1664. When there were no results, the British Parliament then created the Board of Longitude that put up a bounty of 300,000 euros for whoever could come up with that solution. That's equivalent to about $5 to $6 million US today. So now that everyone is on the hunt for a clock find a solution to get the bounty, someone remembered springs and spring clocks. The only problem was that as the clocks unwound, the force that it exerted onto the clock would become less and less. So the solution, the fusée. The fusée was designed so that as it unwound, the force it exerted on the clock would remain the same, hence being shaped like a cone. Then the fusée was attached to a balance wheel, and this created the first actually finally, in 1714, John Harris won the Board of Longitude's bounty by going on a 9-week trip to Jamaica and back, and returned with a sea clock that was only 5 seconds off, well within the 30 seconds that the Board of Longitude allowed to win the prize. Even though there was a functional sea clock, it took many, many years until they became a lot cheaper for sailors to use them widespread. Because we expanded and how and where we now can keep track of time, it made tracking locations so much easier, as well as recording new lands. Certainly was a step forward in gaining new knowledge, as well as my car's GPS. Thank you.